All right, might as well start right up. I apologize. I have the agenda right in front of me. I'd like to I'd like to bluff for a minute while I find it. I am so sorry. Well, let's just call the meeting to order, the regular meeting of the Zoning Boards of Appeal for April 27th, 2022. We'll start right in with roll call. Do y'all want me to read the names? I will. Josh Michelson.
Present.
Joanne Hogan.
Present.
Mark Freeman.
Here.
And Ram Kaza.
I'm here.
That, I believe, establishes a quorum for our board. I believe everyone else is a presenter or the general public. Joanne, do you have an agenda handy by chance? I'm so sorry.
I've
got it, Mr. Antonio.
Yeah.
So roll call, appointment of alternates, applications.
Right, the first application, if you could read it, and I'm so sorry.
Of course.
you want to do Riverside Road first? Is the person representing Riverside Road present at the meeting?
Yes.
Got it.
I'm Steve Feldman. Thank you.
Okay.
Both applicants here tonight.
Okay, great.
So if you'd like, I'm happy to read it. Under public hearings, application 2205 of Steve Feldman, owner applicant for variances pursuant to the Simsbury zoning regulations, sections 3.5 and 3.9 for the construction of 2 14-by-6 sheds in the front yard within the front yard setback of property located at 90 Riverside Road, Assessor's Map H11, Block 107, Lot 043. The public hearing notice had an error in the zone. It reads R40, but the zone is R15.
Okay.
Great, thank you. Is someone here to present on behalf of the applicant?
I guess I
would like to.
This is new ground to me, so you
give us an overview of like what you're looking for, and what our board really concentrates on is your hardship. Why there's no other way to an end of the means, if you will, of why there's no other solution except for a granting of a variance. So Tell us basically who, what, when, where, why, what you're looking for, where it's going to be, and where you're looking for a variance. And then if you could also express a specific hardship for the variance to be applied, we'd appreciate it. Sorry.
Thank you. As it is, we heat this house mostly with wood, almost exclusively. I burn like 5 to 6 cord of wood a winter. This is stacked on pallets that are behind the hedges in front of the house. You really can't see it from the street, as depicted in the pictures in the map. The pallets are a problem. If you've ever worked with things like that, it's unsightly, to be honest, and they break when you step on them, especially after a season or so, which is a hazard. What I'm hoping to do is to replace these pallets with a wood shed to house the wood that, again, will be entirely behind the hedges and open towards the driveway facing the house. The reason for putting it in that place is because of proximity to getting it into the house. I mean, trucking with the wheelbarrow through snow in the backyard is physically difficult to do. I have Parkinson's disease. My wife has a metabolic myopathy. This getting old thing is definitely overrated, I don't mind saying. So I'm trying to make this nicer for our home and for the neighborhood as a whole, as my neighbor has attested to, and safer and safer and a better long-term plan for us. That's a summary of it.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. I've gone through it a little bit. I have to be honest, because this is on the opposite side of the driveway, I don't understand why this would be easier access than your backyard, where you could go literally right out your back door to the shed instead of transversing the walkway, the driveway, and then some land between the shed and the driveway.
Some of it has to do with where the wood stove is in the house, which is in the front. We put it there because the driveway is always shoveled, and you're just not dealing with the weather conditions as such. If it's across it's not entirely flat near the back deck either. It's on a slope. It would require more grooming of it, and it is difficult to. We've had some wood back there in the past. It's difficult to get through the snow, to be frank.
But you have a deck back there. Why couldn't you put it on your deck?
Because it's about 6 cord of wood, and I don't think the deck would hold it. But it's also, it's a lot of wood. I mean, it's a lot of wood to put on a small deck.
Okay. The other point that I'll raise, and then we're going to go through the commissioners too, just so that's sort of how I run the meeting. But if I'm not mistaken, these sheds are higher than the hedges, and in the picture you depicted, the wood piles are actually lower than the hedges. So I'm at a loss on how this would look nicer, to be quite frank and direct about that.
I think the height of the shed could definitely be adjusted. It is custom made. So, I mean, I think that right now it would go about a foot above the top, which is easily, I mean, if I didn't trim that hedge for a year, it would easily catch up. I could easily have them make this shorter if we wanted to be completely flush as it is now.
Well, we have to be somewhat hesitant because when we grant a variance, it's forever. It's not like a temporary thing. That's not an option available to us, to my knowledge. What is the height of the shed, if you don't mind, at least roughly? I don't see that actually in any of the paperwork.
I think it's 9 feet at the peak. No, it's not 6, though.
The application says 14 feet by 6 feet.
That's deep.
Is that deep? There's no height on the application?
I think
it says 9 feet, I think, at the peak of the roof.
Okay.
That's as manufactured, but that can be customized.
Okay, Joanne, do you want to ask a couple other questions for clarification?
Yeah, so my concern here is that we're setting a precedent for having sheds in the front yard. Mm-hmm. The bushes are there now, but the bushes are not permanent. And our responsibility here at this board is to make sure that the variances we grant are unavoidable, and the precedents we set, we're willing to live with that for the town's sake. So my concern is the permanence of a shed and the lack of permanence of the screening of it, and the fact that it's in a front yard. I'm very hesitant to grant a variance to put sheds in the front yard.
Okay. Moving along, Ram, do you have any questions or comments at this time?
No, I don't. Thanks. Thanks, Steve.
All right, Mark, how about you?
Well, he does have, looks like the neighbors are in favor. I know that we do believe that carries weight, that, the getting the neighbor's opinion, things like that. Is that 88 Riverside? Is there somebody else on the other side of you, sir?
Susan Olson is the home on the other side, I believe, is owned by the people that own Warner's Nursery. It's been empty for the last several years. The owner of the home across the street, Susan Olson, texted me yesterday and seemed very much in favor of it, but I don't have a written document from her.
Would they be able to customize? You mentioned they might be able to customize, make it a little bit lower.
Absolutely.
Okay. I think that's all I have, Steve.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Hi, Ali. I'm sorry I didn't see you at the beginning. Does any member of the public want to speak on behalf of this application? All right, just making sure. So George, just so you know, Ally's one of our alternates, so we didn't put her in because we had a quorum. Is she still allowed to ask questions just for protocol reasons?
Yeah, absolutely, until the
Yeah.
public hearing is closed. Yes.
Okay, Ally, do you have any questions or comments on this application? You're on mute.
Yep, thank you. Just coming in a little bit late. I'm sorry about that. And is the reason, is there a reason it can't be in the backyard? And I guess that's why you stated your hardship, but could you just explain that a little bit more, please, as to why the pile or the shed couldn't be put elsewhere?
I'm trying to get this in so that there's good footing and it's safe to move the wood from the shed into the home in bad conditions, like when it's icy out and there's 2 feet of snow, etc.
Okay, thank you.
All right. I believe.
Do we have any pictures of the backyard now?
Of the backyard?
You can get on the GIS. Do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah.
I mean,
I've got an aerial I could share. I mean, from,
if you
from
don't
the town
mind.
GIS. Yeah, sure. Everybody see that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have one other concern, and that's, to be quite frank, Warner Nursery. We have not allowed them to deviate at all with the variance on any of their buildings on that land. And I just foresee that coming, right out of the gate.
Yeah.
For the landscape business. I'm somewhat hesitant, to be honest. Let's close the public hearing, which basically means at this point, the commissioners, we will. How do you want to do it? Because we had some discussion last time whether we make a motion to close the public hearing or we just do it. Joey,
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Did you just do that? Go ahead, Josh.
Before we close, real quick.
Oh, cripes, Josh. Did I not ask you?
No, you're fine. I was thinking there are lesser restrictions on things that are considered temporary structures. What is there, like a time limit on that, or is it something like they'd be able to put like a temporary thing up, or is that
we're not the board?
I mean that's not for us, but as a potential other solution.
George, you'd be the most qualified to answer that.
Yes. So, it seems to me from the reading of the ordinance that you treat temporary, you treat accessory structures as a one, whether they're temporary or permanent.
Okay, so they're considered the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, they carry, once the variance is granted, it carries with the land, even if it is sold. It's a permanent change to that particular parcel. So
Steve, I have one question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Are these sheds movable sheds, or are they fixed?
Well, they'll be hurricane staked down because we're in the water in the wetlands. We have flood insurance and all that.
Right.
So they will be. They are movable. They don't have a permanent foundation, but they will be staked in.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any other questions? Because of course, once we do close the public hearing, we can only talk amongst ourselves. So by all means, any other questions, don't let me cut you off. Let's, even if there's no such thing as a stupid question. Except for the one that Josh asked. No, I'm just kidding. I'm so sorry.
No stupid questions, just stupid people.
Oh, ouch. All right.
I'm just obviously hoping to replace what's something that's there already. That is, the roof obviously makes this viewable as a structure as opposed to what's there now. What I'm proposing is more aesthetic and safer on the whole, and so I'm hoping for common sense to rule the day.
It's a little
I have
more
a question,
difficult
Steve.
than that. By all means, yes, please.
I know with other applicants, we have said, can you come back with X, Y, and Z? So I don't know if that's possible with this or if we are restricted as to when we could say that. But I know that's happened recently on our on our board. So I'm just wondering if that's possible or.
Is there something that you don't feel we have here that would help you make a decision? That's why we ask them to come back if we're missing an element or component that is, we need it to make an educated decision. And by all means, if we're missing something, I mean, honestly, a picture of the backyard I can see, but we do have a topographical, and we did see George brought up the aerial for a moment. That's how I knew. I'm so sorry. Just drop that. That's how I knew the deck was there.
Okay. No, there's nothing that I think is missing. I don't know if anybody else thinks so, but it's just curious as to the rule in general.
Okay. Well, I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing so that we can deliberate amongst ourselves. Not the hearing, the application. I'd like to make a motion to close the application. Would someone like to second that?
Second.
Okay. So let's talk about amongst ourselves. George, also Sharon Thomas in the bottom corner of at least my screen. She is a member of our board. Welcome, Sharon. It's good to see you.
Do we have to vote to approve the motion to close?
I believe you just do a motion and a second. George, what's the...
I would get a motion and a second and ask for everybody to approve that. Yeah, I would.
Okay, by all means then.
Yeah. I think it's just all in favor of closing the public hearing. Right?
All in favor of closing the public hearing?
Aye.
All right, that's unanimous. Okay, time to deliberate amongst ourselves.
Okay, so the crux of it for me is that the I said it before, but I'll reiterate it. We have a couple of people here who probably weren't here when I said it. It is our job to uphold the zoning regs unless there's a hardship that can't be disputed. And as Stephen said, once we approve it, we can never go back, and it sets a precedent for anyone else to come forward with a similar hardship and a similar situation and have the same thing approved. We wouldn't be able to argue that. And I believe it's a slippery slope for us to start on that. Sheds in the front yard are not something that most neighbors would want, and the bushes are temporary. They're not going to hide the sheds forever. And if someone else were to move into that house, maybe cut the bushes down, it's just my feeling with my position on the board that I have to think about the future, not just this very minute.
I have to be honest, I tend to agree. Quite often what we'll do in zoning is at least one corner of the proposed structure has to be behind the front wall of the existing structure. So you can sort of bump it forward, but this particular scenario is point blank a substantial amount of footage. And when I say substantial, I don't mean 100 feet. I mean 15 feet, 20 feet. But a substantial amount of footage in front of the existing structure, which is something, to my knowledge, we have never granted a variance of that extent. So it again goes back to that slippery slope type scenario. Who else would like to talk about it?
I mean, I guess I do respectfully disagree. I see where you're coming from, and I think that is important to remember, what we do here, and everything. And I think that if we were going to look at the hardship in this case, for the homeowners, I think that especially when you can, between their medical situation, I know that's not really what we're supposed to do, but it's hard for me to ignore that and to just kind of glaze over. And then, I guess they can customize it too. They could lower it, when it's installed. But that's kind of my feeling. And then he does have neighbor support. So that's just kind of my feeling on it.
Okay. I'll grant you, but and I'm not anti or pro. I'm just deliberating, but it's one neighbor that we have and one verbal communication. Another thing that sort of alarms me is the height of 9 feet. So the way he's got it now is he's using tarp as a weather membrane. And you can see clearly in the picture that it's lower than the hedge. And obviously, as the wood pile is lowered, so is the visibility of such. It's shown below the hedge line here. If you put this 9-foot high structure in, 2 of them, it's 28 feet of frontage, just to remind everyone the extent. And it's year round, 365 days a week. It's 9 feet high and 14 feet across. And, it's just, it's a, not to say it's a big ask, but it's a big ask. It's something, to reiterate it, it's something we haven't done yet, but, I am one of a number of commissioners. We by all means can vote. Who else has a point to deliberate on, pro or con? It doesn't matter. Pick either side is welcome.
I tend to agree with Mark, especially since we were told, oh, sorry, my dog just walked in the room. I won't say good girl again like I did last time on the recording.
I'm a veterinarian, so that goes deep with me.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry to jump in, but you did close the public hearing.
Yeah.
So be careful with an alternate.
So, Allie, because you're not seated, because we have the quorum.
Oh.
I am so sorry.
Okay.
What do we do about Sharon? Sharon's a full member, I believe.
I am. So one question that I have, I know
you can't ask him. You can ask the other commissioners for clarification, because we did close the public hearing.
You can ask us something and maybe we can answer it, but
no, I'm talking to us.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, my question is going to be to us. So my question is, you said that we only had one neighbor that spoke for this resident. Is that true?
One written communication, one verbal via the applicant has stated he received a verbal. And that's it. But it is, it's over by the river. There's not many people on the other side of the river there.
Right, and both folks were okay with it.
One of the one across the street, and the one, if you were looking at it, the one to the south.
Right. Okay. All right, and so that's one, and then second, I think when I came in, I heard you say that this is the second time they've come before us.
No, that was Allie actually made a comment that in the past we'll occasionally have people come back with a slightly fine-tuned thing if there's something in particular that we feel will weigh heavily on making a decision in a fair way, or if there's something that we feel is a more of a middle ground, if you will, between what is allowed and what they're asking. In other words, to reduce the extent of the nonconformity.
So I, although I understand what Joanne is saying, and, whether it's here or in life, you always want to be careful about, establishing precedent. But I too, in this situation, and I know our role here is around, hardships and zoning, and hardships mean hardships to me. And I'm falling, I think, in place of the fact that there's a medical situation here, and I too am having a problem and struggling with that, and I don't know, because I've not been here long enough. I know that we have rules and regulations and things that we have to follow, but I don't know, I also know that there are people that have done things and off the side, I'll give you, haven't completed some of the things that needed to be done. So is there something here that we could do, as a recommendation if we were to approve this, that would protect us almost from the, the future because of the medical situation.
Unfortunately, no. Zoning laws are black and white. Variances are allowed under them. That is the gray area. That's where we live, is the gray area.
Yeah.
That being said, a variance is permanent in nature, and although compassion, there's nobody on this board that does not have compassion. There are,
no.
Several other things like the I must be looking at the wrong map. No, there's the deck.
Because we brought up the comment about say if we did go forward and they were able to do this and the next person came in, who's to say that the next person coming in wouldn't come forward and say they didn't want that there?
Well, they wouldn't have to come forward. That's the problem.
Right. They could just they could take it down, right?
Yeah, but
this is true, but we're opening ourselves up to having no choice but to approve front yard sheds.
So, George, can you bring up a slide? I don't know how to do it myself, but it's this one. If you can focus on that, it shows the aerial view without the shrubbery.
Yeah,
Isn't there a share option? Can't we share?
I can do it. Hang on.
Yeah, but it's in my hand. I print them out before the meeting. I apologize. So
no, but I was looking at it on my phone.
Is there a problem, George? Because I can get to it.
No, I got it. No problem.
Okay, so the reason I'll talk while George is bringing this up. It almost looks like this is as far as you can. Let me.
Yeah.
How about that?
So if you look at it, the yellow, of course, is the proposed sheds. And on the back of the house, you can see the bump out, and there's a deck of sorts, if I'm not mistaken, there as well. We're literally transversing the front porch, the front steps, the front yard, the driveway, and then we're putting the sheds in. If you turn it around to the back of the house, it's pretty far. It's not like we're butting it right up against the house. One of the things that I can propose to the board is maybe if we took these sheds so at least they were 90 degrees, you'd only have a total of 12 feet with the vantage point of the road. Otherwise we're talking 28 feet is, not to say it's half a house. So, that's one thing that I can think of. Otherwise, the backyard almost seems closer, but he says that the deck isn't cleared, I believe was the reason.
Steve, I have one question.
Comment.
I know we don't want to have a precedence to allow in front yard, but I strongly feel that we have a strong hardship here. Also, it might be a stupid question. Can we allow one shed instead of two sheds? Will that help?
We can allow anything, Ram, literally. I'm just saying, if you turn them 90 degrees, it's a reduction of over 50% of what he's asking. And honestly, why not belly him up to the porch and run them in tandem parallel to the front walkway at that point? If this is a genuine hardship, that's where the sheds need to be, is as close as possible to the actual structure.
Okay, so Stephen, you're saying, I can see, I'm circling this right here, and George, if you could move 1 second, Stephen. George, if you could move the cursor to where we're talking about. But Stephen, you're saying this is the porch area, right? And so Stephen, you're saying, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So this is the porch area, and where they're saying where that temp shed is where they want it to go. Is that correct?
That what?
They want it to go where those two yellow.
Oh, where the two yellow. Okay.
That's what I'm saying is it's far away.
It's right by the road. It's just a few feet from the road. And we're not asking them to move the wood piles. They can stay there with tarps on them. The nature of that is temporary. My issue is with putting what is essentially a permanent structure that close to the road in front of a house in front yard.
And
The wood piles can stay. There's no issue with the wood piles.
Well, the wood piles are also temporary in nature as far as
That's what I mean. The wood
seasonality.
piles are temporary in nature as they are now. They're not a problem, and they don't have to move. Obviously, he can put wood piles all over his yard if he wants to, but a permanent structure in a front yard is, it's not. I feel like it's not in my purview on this board to prove that.
Okay, and so let me just, forgive me for the questions if these have come up already, but just, and so I see the two yellows in the front, and then there's this temp shed over here to the left.
We don't know
right?
what that is.
That temporary shed is not part of this application.
I understand that. I completely understand that, but my question, it's just making me say then, they want to build this here, but what is that there? And why is there a reason that couldn't, what they're wanting to build couldn't go off to the side?
A temporary shed implies there was no variance granted for it, so it is temporary in nature, which is not under our purview.
But we don't have the right to go back and have conversation around, we're needing just to understand more about the property. I mean, to me, if there's daylight, I may even just go drive by there,
If you
Yeah, I did drive by this afternoon, and the temporary shed is a very attractive barn-like building that runs, as you can see, kind of parallel with the front of the house.
That's right.
It sticks out a little bit, but it's really not part of this application, so I don't know all the details of that shed.
Yep.
And I would just say, if I could just add a point of clarification, it's not testimony. That shed we would likely consider a pre-existing non-conforming shed. So I think
if they bother,
it's been there for a period of time.
And George, I'm not, I wasn't really trying to, question that. I was just trying to understand a little bit more about the property and the reason for why they, it's there, so it makes you just say, why are they needing to build out that instead of that space? It's just trying to understand a little bit more, you know what I mean? Without us just having a decision. And my last question is this: do we have to make this decision tonight?
No, we can table anything at any particular time. What would you ask him to bring back, though, that would be...
I would say this, just again, you can defer action or postpone action until a future meeting, but you can't accept any additional testimony.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification.
You've closed the public hearing.
Well, did we close the public hearing? You mean tonight when we did that?
Yeah.
But did we do that with full understanding that we knew that,
Yeah, we did. We actually asked George for clarification. So honestly, Sharon, no offense, but you missed part of it because you came late.
I understand that, Steve. I'm okay with that. But I'm asking questions based on what I'm also hearing from the rest of the commissioners.
George, do you have any guidance for me on this?
Yeah, I would. So you could do a couple of things. I mean, if there were items that you wanted clarification on from the applicant, we could certainly schedule another public hearing. I mean, that is certainly something we could do. Usually we would do that if there was new information that was pertinent to the application. I'm not sure there is, but I think that would be the option. You could reschedule for a future date. We could re-advertise, but again, if I don't know that there's additional information or testimony that could be provided, it has to be substantially different what you're hearing the next time around. Or, I mean, certainly a part of this application, you certainly have the ability to condition, some of the things you spoke of, whether it's perpendicular alignment of the sheds or in a different location or only one of them. So you certainly have the right to establish reasonable conditions.
Okay. Well, I'm torn on whether we just put this to a vote or table it and defer it. I don't know what's going to come back because I don't see the hardship, which is really what we all center on as a permanent thing in nature that applies to the site plan. You know, it's like buying a house on a hill and then saying I need it to be level. There's only so much we can do within this. Basically, what we're being asked is to put two long structures in somebody's front yard. I believe it, as Joanne also acknowledged, is a true negative to the neighborhood because it sets a precedent down there on Riverside Road, which is a beautiful area. If we let people start blocking the views, it's a dangerous precedent. It's a slippery slope. I think we should just put it, I don't know.
Mr. Chairman, I was going to say your option is to ask for a motion.
Does someone have a motion? Any motion?
You want to make a motion to approve the application as read?
Sure.
All right, I can read it. Now, just to clarify for our applicant, we always make the motions in the affirmative. So I'll be making the motion to approve the application, and then the board will vote either yay or nay to approve it. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
And to approve under your regs, it requires 4 affirmative votes.
Right. Oh, 4 affirmatives would pass it. Okay.
All
right. I make a motion to approve application 22-05 of Stephen Feldman, owner applicant, for variances pursuant to the Simsbury zoning regulations, sections 3.5 and 3.9, for the construction of 2 14 by 6 foot sheds in the front yard within the front yard setback of the property located at 90 Riverside Road. This approval is subject to the following condition. All appropriate permits are to be obtained. The hardship stated by the applicant is that the lot does not allow for these structures to be in the backyard due to uneven terrain and health issues of the homeowners needing it to be in the front yard where the terrain is flatter.
Okay, for simplicity, let's do it by roll call. I unfortunately
you'll need a second.
You need a second.
Second it.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Josh got the second. Do you want me to do them all at once, George, or do you want it by commissioner?
Wait, we're on Zoom. You could. I would poll them.
Okay. All those in favor? Please
Aye.
raise your name.
Aye.
That's 3. All those opposed? Nay.
Okay.
That's 3. And there's no one left to abstain. I'm so sorry. I wish there was something that was closer to the line and we could approve it. But this, and I know it was not malicious in nature, but was a huge variance from what is allowed. So I'm so sorry to say it, but we did not pass this evening.
I understand. Would modifying the structure be of any use?
You can always reapply. That's definitely not.
I mean, if something is not as tall as that, would that hold any weight?
You see how that temporary shed or whatever we're calling it, barn is? It's got that toe hold. That's an important component, that it is at least a toe of it is behind the front of the structure. That's important. The other thing for me that was huge was that you had them parallel to the roadway, and it was a major length and obstruction. So possibly if that was reduced as far as depth, but the height also was another thing. 9 feet is tall. You know, average fence is 6 foot at the most. So it was visually somewhat impeding to passerbys. Does anyone else have any hints if he would like to reapply?
I would just be interested in seeing if there's a structure that could be considered truly temporary.
If you don't need us if you do that, to be quite
If
frank.
it's truly a temporary structure that's not a shed that someone else can put another shed there because they've got a variance. Like once you put a shed there, someone else can put another shed there if that one breaks down. And if it were truly a temporary lean-to, I don't know what kind of thing that's not considered temporary, you wouldn't even need a variance for.
That's how this whole thing started. Was I really just wanted to do a simple lean-to with incomplete sides to it so that it would aerate fine. And then I was told that anything that has a roof on it is considered a permanent structure.
Okay.
It is.
Okay.
It is. It's a rock in a hard place, but honestly,
It
that
really is.
said, we'd have to ask George, but those carports, aren't those temporary in nature? You know, the canvas ones.
They are. I think they're temporary, but I still think we consider them structures.
All right.
So this is what I would suggest, and this is what staff's job is, of course, is that I'll get with Laura. We will follow up with Mr. Feldman to see if there are based upon your comments, if there's a way to resubmit a new application that maybe addresses some of those concerns.
Thank you all for your consideration tonight. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for your time. I'm sorry we couldn't just do this in one fell swoop.
No, that's okay. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
We appreciate your understanding. With that being said, let's move right ahead to application number 22-06 of Michael and Tanya Gugliotti, owner applicant for variances pursuant to the Simsbury zoning regulations, sections 3.5, 3.9, and 7.4 for the construction of a 24-foot by 20-foot attached garage with the front yard setback for the property located at 12 Springbrook Lane. It is an R40 zone. Who is someone here to present on behalf of the applicant?
Yes, I am. You hear me?
Yeah. How you doing?
Yeah, good. Thanks.
So if you could tell us roughly what you're proposing, where you're proposing it, and what the hardship is, we would greatly appreciate it.
Sure. So the proposal is really twofold. First reasoning is I have an elderly mom that I want to take care of. So I wanted to, where the current garage is, I want to close off and create living space for her there. The other half of this is that the bump out that's currently where I want to put the garage is poorly constructed to begin with, and it's in poor shape. So I wanted to take it down, and I thought that kill two birds with one stone and put up a garage there, and still be able to accommodate some living accommodations for my mother.
So, are you still going? I'm so sorry to interrupt.
No, that's the in a nutshell.
The biggest first question is: do you propose to have both driveways, or are you transferring the driveway?
Primarily, I'll probably have a small parking space. But the majority of that driveway, the current driveway, will be gone. Only reason I would leave access to the road is because the front walkway to the house has to go somewhere. So, it currently connects to the driveway. So I would probably consider leaving something like that. But essentially, it would be mostly removed.
All right. And can you just reiterate the hardship for me? Just one more time. I'm so sorry. Thank you.
Well, I think, as you can see, the house is non-conforming to any of the setbacks as it is. And the current bump out there, the 20 by 12 foot, it's a 3-season room. It's built on some piers. And when it was constructed, it was poorly designed, poorly made. The roof is sagging. The thing is leaning. So I need to either spend a bunch of money to fix it or tear it down. And then, like I said, I want to build some living space for my mom to move in. She's 79. She's losing her hearing, losing her eyesight, and I don't want to put her somewhere. I want to take care of her. So that's, again, trying to make everything as,
All right, so just to help you tune your hardship,
Yep.
It's got to be something that the site doesn't have that you need to bring this to fruition. So
Maybe this would help. The side where the driveway is now, I'm just going to ask the question. I think I know the answer. Is there space there to add a garage?
no.
Okay.
are the steps a handicap? That would be a hardship.
Yeah,
Trying to help you with this.
yeah, that's, I mean, for her, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Whereas the new garage entrance would be flush to the ground, if I'm not mistaken, looking at the topography of the
That's
land.
correct. Yep.
So she would be able to come in on the ground floor right into the house?
Right.
Okay.
Right. That was the whole thought.
Do any of the other commissioners have any questions they'd like to ask?
So I just want to make sure I'm clear. So right now you're planning on turning the garage into living space and then building a garage on the other
Yeah, basically.
the other street there.
Right.
Is there, I mean, this wouldn't help with the nonconformity, but was there any thought put into, instead of building a new garage, making what was going to be the new garage living space? I don't know if that would
we
change
consider
anything.
that, but again, it would be raised. Right. Yeah, we did consider that though. Yeah.
So I'm so sorry for not, I just want to make sure. So the existing garage is becoming living space.
Yes. Yep.
So that garage door is being removed. That is now on the front of the house, correct?
Right. That'll be closed off. That'll be your window there. Yeah.
Like an in-law suite or something.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I just shared the existing condition, the existing
Perfect.
garage. And then let me go around the corner here. It might be easier and kind of more instructive. And so this would be Deerfield. And so
Yeah. So that there. Yeah. That's basically going to be, removed, and something a little bit bigger is going to be put there in its place.
What's the increase in the encroachment on the setback?
On the front yard, it'll be front yard to Deerfield. It'll be, I think, 3 feet.
Okay.
yeah, correct. It's a 7.
So it's an extra 3 foot encroachment from what it is now. Okay.
Other questions, anyone?
Just a question, maybe. So can we build a living space above garage, or you already have a room above garage?
Yeah, that's
Existing
already
room?
a bedroom up there. Yeah.
Okay, anyone else? Any questions whatsoever? Are there any members of the general public that would like to speak on behalf of this application? Hearing none and hearing nothing from the commissioners, I'd like to make a motion to close this application at this time.
Second.
Haven't received a second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? There's no one for either of those. And now we can discuss amongst ourselves. Well, I'll start. This variance is substantially less than what we're talking about at other times. It's a 3 foot variance that plays a role for me. It essentially is just inching out an existing area. The biggest thing is the proposed driveway. We have not heard from any neighbors, and they were notified whether for or against, but usually if someone's against, they are outspoken. I would want to put some qualifications as far as the existing driveway, just because of the impervious surface. There's only so much I think that needs to come along with this house. So, I'll leave that for another commissioner to propose some particular dimension. A average car is about 8 feet wide, is wide enough, and a parking spot on average is 10 feet, and a walkway is 3 foot. Those are not official. Those are just things that I've learned roughly. Is 8 foot is what you need for the width of most any vehicle. But 10 foot is your parking spot because you need to open your doors, and then a 3 foot walkway. As you looked at the house, I'm sure you also noticed there's shrubbery and landscaping on the right side as you face the house. So you would need additional footage for that walkway around that. Anyone else? Anything for or against? Or things that we would limit the variance allowed with?
Yeah, I don't really see any like just looking at like the Google Maps, I don't really see there's like a shed. I'm not sure if that's part of their property.
I think it is.
Okay.
Yeah, shed's back there, yeah.
So I don't really see any issue with like neighbors, maybe somebody across the street, but
we get a lot of these applications on corner lots with people who end up with 2 front yards. And oftentimes what is the side yard ends up being underutilized because just the way the houses are placed on the property. I feel like his plan is making use of what's already there. He's taking down what's there, but he's not vastly changing his footprint from what's already there, which is appreciated.
Yeah.
And in doing that, he's going to be able to make that first floor into a very accessible space for someone who needs a space who has limited access without stairs. So he's making use of the current garage space by creating that to be part of the house, and then not really changing his footprint drastically, just big enough to put the garage in, so he still has the garage attached to the house. So it seems like a pretty frugal plan in a good way.
And that's important, the hardship you just acknowledged of the corner lot. I totally forgot. We've got 2 front yard setbacks in lieu of a side yard setback.
Right. It's always a problem for people. Corner lots are great, but then they give you these 2 front yards and you end up with 2 really restrictive setbacks, which is hard.
Yeah, let's turn lemonade out of lemons. You can put a driveway in.
Right.
Is there anything like any big deal about that fire hydrant there? I don't know if that's. I see a fire hydrant on the street view.
It's on the topographical. If you look at it, it's nowhere near the turning radius or anything.
Okay.
But if it was a structure, it would matter, but it's a driveway. So it doesn't matter. Other questions, comments? Okay. Hearing none. Joanne, you want to make the motion? Do you have it there? Or I can, whichever. Just to remind you.
So just to reiterate, we always make our motions in the affirmative. So I'll be reading the motion in the affirmative and then we'll vote yea or nay. So I'd like to make a motion to approve the application of Michael and Tanya Gugliotti, owner applicant, for variances pursuant to the Simsbury zoning regulations 3.5, 3.9, and 7.4 for the construction of a 24 foot by 20 foot attached garage within the front yard setback for the property located at 12 Springbrook Lane, Zone R40. All appropriate permits are to be obtained. Hardship being that he's on a corner lot with 2 front yard setbacks and is trying to create a safe dwelling for his elderly parent. And this makes the most use of the space without increasing what is already non-conforming. It's increasing it, but by a minimal amount in order to make the best use of his square footage of his house and the corner lot with 2 front yard setbacks.
Can you add an additional restriction that the existing bituminous drive be reduced to no wider than 13 feet or whatever?
And the application approval would also be contingent on his reduction of the current driveway to 13 feet wide from the double driveway that it is now to accommodate 1 lane of vehicles.
I'll second that motion. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Sorry, I spoke too soon. All right. Opposed? Abstain? It's unanimous. You pass. So thank you very much for taking your time to come before us.
Thank you.
And good luck with your projects.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Next discussion is general commission business. Before we move on to discussing virtual or in person, George McGregor is our new town planner. He is down at town hall most days. If anyone wants to stop by to meet him, he's usually just hanging around, drinking coffee, not really doing much, but he's there. And welcome. We appreciate you being part of our town. We look forward to a long tenure for you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, everyone, we keep them long, so hope you find that office comfortable. With that being done, let's talk about how everyone feels about future meeting status, virtual versus in person. Being the big mouth, I'll start since nobody else opened up their mouth quick enough. I personally like virtual, especially because in full disclosure, my daughter has COVID right now. So I'm quarantining just preemptively to make sure everything's good. And, I was still able to attend the meeting. We're not quite out of the pandemic yet. And if there was something pertinent that we could only do in person, I would be more in favor of in person because I don't want to limit our abilities. But I feel in person is just as effective as remote or vice versa. What does everyone else feel though?
Can we do hybrid?
You can do hybrid. They've got the owl down in the meeting room. It's a little funky. It's weird. There's a definite disconnect. Have you ever been to a hybrid meeting by chance, Ram?
Board of Ed meetings are with the owl, you mean?
Yeah, so when you're in the room, there's a large movie screen on one side of the room, and it's got, whoever is remote on that. There's a small lag. It's a very insignificant lag. I don't mean to make more of it than it is, but it's the people that are remote are definitely not as engaged as being live just because of that little lag and the fact that you're on a screen limited in view to only what the owl will turn to. So, any meeting's the same. We do have them downtown hall. Some people have decided since the Board of Selectmen meetings are now hybrid. Honestly, a few, George, there's some that are actually in person. Zoning's in person. The actual zoning board.
So zoning board is going to go back in person effective July 1.
Okay.
Sorry, June 1, excuse me. I'm sorry. We pushed it out because of advertising. We had already previously advertised for items.
Okay.
But I would offer this just so you know. It does look like, I got a note today, it does look like the legislature is going to vote for permanent allowability of Zoom meetings. I think there was a concern about whether they would extend that. I did get a note and the press release said something like that the governor was going to be prepared to sign it. So those are options. So Zoom in-person, hybrid are all options, and you don't have to commit. I mean, if you wanted to have a public hearing and in person, and we had enough time to advertise, you could certainly choose to do that. From staff's perspective, the hybrid is a little bit more of a challenge because there's a lot going on, one staff member running the meeting. But we would make it work if that was the will of the commission.
I'm in favor of remote. I think it's just easier. You know, I have a 2-year-old. My wife is 9 months pregnant. You know, it's tough to get out, you know, at 7 o'clock on a weeknight. I don't know. I know it's a small town and it's not far, but, you know, I don't know. That's just my thought.
So
You don't have to raise your hand.
well, it's just to
appreciate it.
acknowledge just talking so we don't talk over each other. That's all I'm trying to do. So I have an appreciation for one of the other meetings that we should think about hybrid, but I do believe for this one, it's been working. And what I do like about the Zoom is it does cut down on, you know, folks having to, you know, scurry to try to get someplace. I believe personally, you know, as George said, you know, we could always announce. And I think that some of that is just sometimes we just want to all be in a room together just so we can see each other other than in a little box. But I think we could always plan to do something so that we could do that. You know, don't have to throw out Antonio's as a place to do it, but you know what I mean.
That works for me. You know,
But I mean, so I do think we could accommodate that because I do think there's some goodness in us all just coming together. But I think we can get our business done in this forum, you know. So I would say Zoom.
yeah, we could do an annual meeting or
Yes.
any time at that. The other thing that's important is two things I'd like to bring up. One is that remote is also nice for the applicant because they're only there for that portion of the meeting that pertains to them, albeit in chronological order of when their application is presented. But it does make it more of an ease for them. And just to reiterate, so I'm also on design review board. And what we decided was we would continue remote, except in an instance that we needed to actually touch or feel something. If there was something on the agenda that fell into that scenario, we could definitely do it in person. And I would make the effort as, you know, not to say a public servant, but as whatever we are, a public servant, you know, to go see an applicant and let them present in person. That being said, I can't remember the last time a ZBA application has really needed that in-person touch and feel. You know, if we really wanted, we could just do field trips to these people's houses and set up a camper, do it live. All right. So it seems like, does anyone else want to speak on this issue?
I'd say that I would be opposed to doing strictly in person, if nothing else. Like I don't have a particular preference between hybrid or virtual, but I don't think it's a good idea to go to strictly in person at this point.
Okay, acknowledged. Al, you've been exceptionally quiet. You can still talk.
I was told I couldn't do anything.
You can't vote. Once the
Allie's been
application
muzzled.
is closed, you can talk
This
in
is rare
open forum.
when I don't talk a lot. Yeah, I'm good with remote. I'm actually starting law school in the fall. So if my schedule works out, I could be remote from law school if needed for a meeting, if I have a class before or in between. So that works for me. And I agree, like it makes the most sense. It's easy to share screen. Thank you for doing that. So I'm all for that.
Congratulations, Al.
Oh, thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak? It seems like we're all on the same page. So if it's okay, I'm just going to, we don't have to vote on it, I don't think, but I'm in favor. Is anyone opposed to full remote for the next several meetings? Hearing that, that's the game plan.
Okay.
George, I would like to acknowledge something that was unique and new tonight that no town planner has ever done. To be full disclosure, the ability was never there. But when you brought us to Google Earth or whatever and drove the site. That was very insightful and honestly gave us a grasp that the packet did not encompass.
Yeah,
So
I would be in favor of trying to do that again. It was very helpful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
that
I
was
drove by both sites today, but, or actually this week, but that was helpful in the moment to see what we were talking about.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's-
honestly, in hindsight, that would have been good even with the Riverside Road application.
And I'll say it's you know, I have two monitors. It's something
Yes.
I've been doing at
You're such a
different
show
meetings.
Josh.
I know, but I'm
I have
trying to
6
explain.
monitors.
I'm
just
constantly
have
looking
one
off
crew.
this way. But that's something I've been doing. But I think myself personally, just going on to Street View to look at these as we've been talking about them.
Yeah, it is really
And
helpful.
I
in the
think it is a
moment.
good thing to have.
Yeah.
That just so we can all see, look at it together.
Yeah, I've just gotten in the habit of before the meeting and all the meetings I've been having, just pull up Google Maps.
Yeah.
Before it even gets started, so I can just go there if we need it.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, sure.
Really, really appreciate that. Really paranoid of what's on Josh's second monitor now. I'm not going to be able to clear that vision.
But I also think that the other piece that's really good is for those who may come behind and listen and watch. It also gives them some insight into what we're talking about as well.
The Google Earth thing, right?
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Is there any other general commission business before we move on to minutes?
I have a question. Is there a way to text me or something if you need me? Because we have so many permanent members now. It's good for me to occasionally attend so I can still learn. But if you could text me last minute or something like, hey, we need you, we don't have quorum, then I can hop on and then I can just plan to not. I think that's less awkward than coming on and sitting here for an hour and not being able to vote and things like that. Even though I learn a lot, it's great. But yeah.
So on the reciprocal side of that, if anyone can alert us if you're not going to come to the meeting, that's where that comes into play. And quite often the town planner will text the chair of whatever board it is. Doesn't have to be our board. And did she, who just dropped off? It doesn't matter. Anyways, if we alert Joe or Greg that we're going to be short, we will reach out. I would like to also acknowledge that Joe Hollis, I'm not sure you all got the notification, but they want to update our contact information because obviously in that scenario, we would need to contact you. And Allie, as you know, you've been probably 50-50 as far as being seated on the commission. So yeah, with that understood, I'll make sure I have your cell phone number and I'll text you as soon as I find out. And to be frank, there's other boards that aren't as easily populated that there is a lot of frantic texting in the first 2 minutes of the board meeting, where are you? Are you coming? And so, we quickly organize so that we can go live as soon as possible.
And I will just add, Allie and I have had this thing whereby I try to let her know if I'm not going to be able to come to see if she can come, so just as an FYI, we do try to stay in touch.
Oh, that's great.
So full transparency.
You're talking about us behind our backs. Great. But that being
before every meeting.
Yeah, before every meeting we do that.
The meeting on March 23rd, 2022, has anyone had the opportunity to read the minutes? And if so, are they fine? Did anyone find any typos or anything?
Looks fine to me.
I didn't even find typos.
I didn't either, but I'm not the
but I'm
greatest
not a
speller
teacher.
either.
You are. All right, I'll just make the motion to approve the minutes of March 23rd, 2022, our regular meeting. Someone second it, please.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Oppose, abstain, there's no one to do, so it's unanimous, we pass. And with that being said, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thank you all for your time and efforts.
Thank you,
Welcome,
everybody.
George.
Very much.
Welcome.
Welcome.
George.
Thanks, George.
Welcome.